Lee Kuan Yew is dead, finally. Why hasn't anyone said, fuck yeah, the guy is dead? Lee Kuan Yew was a horrible person. Because everyone is scared. Everyone is afraid that if they say something like that, they might get into trouble, which, give Lee Kuan Yew credit, that was primarily the impact of his legacy. But I'm not afraid. So if Lee Hsien Loong wishes to sue me, I will oblige to dance with him. Come at me, motherfucker. Lee Kuan Yew, contrary to popular belief, was a horrible person and an awful leader to our country. He was a dictator, but managed to fool most of the world to think he was democratic, and he did so by still granting us the opportunity to vote to make it seem like we have freedom of choice. However, during your rule, you controlled the entire media and education, proliferating nationalistic propaganda on a daily basis. Like right now, since Lee Kuan Yew is dead, all day you see 24-hour news coverage of necrophiliacs sucking Lee Kuan Yew's dick. And you place an excessive surplus of your books in popular bookstores. In most of his books, look at how he self-indulgently plasters reams of pages with these montage of pictures of his experiences. Like, ooh, look how much better I am compared to you. And of course, he is absolutely notorious for suing people who criticized him, forcing them into jail and leading them into bankruptcy. And apparently, his thirst for suing is hereditary too. So he created an environment where his blatant flaws as a leader were hidden because most people were afraid of criticizing him in fear of being found guilty by the judicial system that he controls. So everything that people hear is about how great Lee Kuan Yew is. Of course he is able to deceive people into voting for him. Despite our voting rights, he is undoubtedly totalitarian. Now, seeing what Lee Kuan Yew has done, I'm sure many individuals who have done similar things comes to mind, but I'm going to compare him to someone that people haven't really mentioned before. Jesus. And the aptness of that analogy is heightened, seeing how Christians seems to be a really big fan of him. They are both power-hungry and malicious, but deceive others into thinking that they are compassionate and kind. Their impact and legacy will ultimately not last as more and more people find out that they're full of bull. And Lee Kuan Yew's followers are completely delusional and ignorant, and have absolutely no sound logic or knowledge about him that is grounded in reality, which Lee Kuan Yew very easily manipulates, similar to the Christian knowledge of the Bible and the work of a multitude of priests. On the surface, he seemed quite successful. He turned Singapore from a small seaport into a bustling metropolis, rife with skyscrapers and its own casino. World leaders seemed to like him, most notably Margaret Thatcher, and many foreigners and millionaires wished to invest in Singapore. But you look deeper, and you find out what the true nature of Lee Kuan Yew's Singapore is. I'm sure most of your parents have told you how luxurious Singapore is, and how if you go to another country it would be much harder and much more expensive. But all you have to do is do a Google search, look at our country's statistics, and you will find out how fucking delusional and ignorant and stupid your parents are. Most people in Singapore are struggling to make ends meet, and it is reported that Singaporeans work the longest hours in the world. We are one of the richest countries in the world, but we have one of the highest income inequalities, highest poverty rates, and our government spends one of the lowest on healthcare and social security. The money spent on the public is so low, it's more representative of a third world country. And yet the amount of taxes is one of the highest in first world countries. And political leaders in Singapore earns more than quadruple the amount earned by political leaders in the United States. They are acquiring so much money. Why aren't they spending it on the people? What are they actually spending it on? One time an SDP member told me that once they got into power, they are going to take the key and open every cupboard and search out all the information on the government spending to find out what those motherfuckers have been doing with all that money. And whenever somebody wonders online if the government is pocketing the money for themselves, they get sued. Quite suspicious, isn't it? And how Lee Kuan Yew deemed what he considered as success was solely predicated upon measurable, concrete results. A rich country, the love of major powers, a positive public image. And his emphasis on results was transcendent onto how Singaporeans led their lives. Somebody who has the better house, the better results in an exam, the better degree, is deemed more successful than the other person. And because of this emphasis on pure materialism, it sacrificed our happiness. Because if someone is more concerned about money and status over what they're actually doing and their life, no fucking shit you would lead a depressing life. I think the biggest flaw of Lee Kuan Yew as a leader to our nation is that he honestly thought that money and status equated to happiness. And his failure to understand how false that was really showed, leading us to be one of the richest countries in the world and one of the most depressed. Ultimately, how do you quantify a great leader? It is by how he creates a place where people are able to live happily and prosper based on their own unique attributes. And he hasn't. So no matter how rich the country he made is, or how many world leader dick he sucked, it doesn't mean a thing. His death was great for him too, seeing how he was struggling with an illness for several years, and even declared that he wished he was dead. He should have asked his son to pull the plug or committed suicide by himself. But he didn't. You know why? Because if he did, his band of sycophants who for decades have been voraciously sucking his oblong dick might despise him, and his oh-so-great reputation that he so desperately tried to uphold might shatter, because it would be deemed quite controversial for a leader to end his life with suicide. And it is rather tragic, isn't it, that he had to suffer the last few years with the atmosphere of materialism and the meat-headed need for a positive image that he himself created. Karma really isn't that much of a bitch. So there you go, Lee Kuan Yew. An overrated, overglorified person, a dictator, and exceptionally Machiavellian in nature. Good riddance, Lee Kuan Yew. I neither hope and neither will you rest in peace. But now with his death and the upcoming elections next year, there is a high chance that us, citizens of Singapore, things can finally change for the better. Let's all hope for change. For good change. For every possible kind.